I knew like I did everything I could. If God wanted this to happen, like this would have happened because I didn't leave any stone unturned.
What at Utah State,
At Utah, University of Utah.
and you're like the college pro. Then like, what was your plan after that? Because I'm actually really interested in like what you were thinking after, like how what were you preparing
So
for?
after I threw my hat in the ring as far as NFL stuff is concerned.
Yeah.
I got picked up for some tryouts with a couple different teams. I didn't end up sticking around. Um, so I came home. We found out we were pregnant, and so I
Yeah.
just kind of got a job and moved on with life. I was always a little older than everybody else with mission, and then I got a late start and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really have the time to kind of wait around 2 or 3 years trying to bust into the league. So I moved
Right.
on pretty quickly after that initial spurt. But from there, I worked at a
Because how old are you right
or a
now?
software company. I'm 28.
28. Dude, that's not that
Yeah, and so
old.
that was 2 years ago. Yeah, well, in football
Oh, I
years it
guess in
is.
football years, yeah. What's
Yeah,
like
because
what's like
like
the age with the dudes that you were competing with at the time? Were they like in their low 20s? Like,
yeah, they were like 21, 22,
okay.
because they came out of high school at 18, went straight into college. Some of them only spent 3 years there, so they're 21. If they spent 4 or 5, they're 21 or they're 22, 23 maybe.
Right.
And so I was 4 years older than them as a rookie.
Okay.
And so the guys that were my age are on their second contracts. They're, established guys in the league. And so
Right.
when a team gets like, and really with the NFL, talent trumps everything. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're good enough, you'll stick. There's not a whole lot that'll keep you out, like anything
Yeah.
that'll keep you out if you're good enough. But for me, um, I was more of a fringe guy. I probably would have been a special teams type of player.
Right.
But I mean, honestly, I had the talent for it, but I just didn't stick. So
Yeah.
it's a lot about fit in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I didn't find that, and then I moved on pretty quickly and started doing all this stuff.
But you still went through like the process of going through those camps, right? The tryout camps.
Hmm.
Like, how's that, man? Because you're up against dudes that are just like willing to sacrifice every second of their life, every bone in their body for this moment. Like, did you
Yeah,
feel it when you were there?
yeah, it's a business for sure.
Yeah.
It's definitely that. And I was at the rookie camp, so I was around guys that were mostly in the same state as me. Um, but you kind of see, especially with the incoming rookies,
Right.
it's not nearly as impressive as you would think. There's guys that are on another level, like the receiver that I went to Oakland. Oakland had drafted a receiver in the first round that year. I don't even remember his name now, but I'm sure everybody else does. And he was head and shoulders, like he was very, very impressive. Like did whatever he wanted to do on the field. There was another guy um, in Kansas City. He was a cornerback, like safety hybrid. I think they have him at cornerback now,
Yeah.
but he's on the Pro Bowl now, and he was kind of on another level. But other than that, there's a lot of guys that you think like, how did you get here? Like,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
it's there was a tight end that stuck actually with the team. He got signed, and I think he's been with them for several years. But I looked at him like, how did you possibly get here? Like, but I mean, he was 6'7", 265, and so like
Oh, geez. Big
I'm never
guy.
gonna learn how to be 6'7". You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they figure a lot of times that um, you can teach skills, you can improve people, but you can't teach someone how to be taller or how to run a 4.3. Like that stuff is innate. You either have it or you don't. So
Right.
other skills you can teach, but within the NFL, like that's just kind of how it works. Hmm.
It sounds like yours was more like, just timing and life. And I mean, you just had a baby and it was like, man, everything was just sort of aligning with you kind of moving forward with your life rather than trying to live out this dream that most dudes will just, they'll cut everything out just to do that.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Um, there was a lot of that, and there was a lot of things that I look back on now that I could have done different to improve my chances. I mean, there's tons of guys that I know of that had more than enough talent to play in the league, but are not in the league because it's such a razor thin line that you walk. And the more talented you are, the obviously the the bigger that razor thin edge is. But it takes a lot of different stuff mentally as well as physically as well as external forces to get you into the right situation. And so for me, I was pretty willing to walk away at a pretty early stage in it.
Right. You said you're working for the software company. How are you going to apply all that experience now to get to where you want to go?
It's really been kind of a little bit of a struggle, and it's taken some time. Actually, just recently, I felt like I've caught some traction in figuring out what I wanted to do because with the company that I'm at, like when I quit playing, I went and worked for a company called Nuvi, which is software sales. I did that for a few months, ended up getting another job offer. That's when I came out here and started working for this company. And initially, I had kind of anticipated it being just maybe a year or two thing. We kind of take a breather, get away from Utah, get away from football, get ourselves some own space because we were living with my wife's in-laws at the time.
Right.
So we took a break, took a breather, and then I was working from home, which was nice. But the job I was in, it was not a whole lot of fulfillment in it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a very difficult job, and so I've kind of taken it upon myself to kind of try to go above and beyond in the things that I can do, as well as reach out to other people. Actually, while I was in Utah just recently, I have a good friend who's a wildly successful real estate agent. So I went and shadowed him for a day. We went and visited a guy that's a social media guru. Picked his brain on a ton of stuff, learned a ton that day. I went over, there's a guy that I know. Actually, I didn't even know him. I met a guy, but just I feel like when you invite networking into your life,
Yeah.
it just kind of spreads like a wildfire. I'm sure you know that.
Oh, totally,
But
man. Totally.
and so when I've kind of kept my eye on that type of thing, I ended up seeing a guy that I knew at a fireworks event, and I was telling him kind of what I've got going on, how I've been trying to go and seek out these successful people to see what makes them successful, how they got to where they are. And he was like, "Hey, you should drop by and see this guy." And so I went over there a couple days later. I went and spent a few hours with them. And so as I've continued to try to do that, it seems like my network has built up quite a bit. And you kind of just see how much stuff there is to do in the world.
Oh, man.
Like,
That's such a
because
good point
with football,
because if you just stay in a bubble, whether it's the sport that you play or the place that you live, that's why I kind of left where I was because I felt like I was in a little bit of a bubble where you get so comfortable and used to how the ebb and flow of life is doing those things. And I just went to a completely different
hmm
city, and all of a sudden there's this new energy. You know what I mean? You open yourself up to a new experience,
hmm
and the new energy brings new ideas, and that's what's happening.
Like I was saying, and then like I was saying with football, I feel like I really had blinders on to everything else because, especially collegiate level football, it's very very demanding and it's very easy to see nothing else but what's in front of you.
Yeah.
Because physically it's very hard, mentally it's very hard, and then when you add social aspects, you add curriculum, all of those different things kind of combine into a perfect storm of tunnel vision. And so when you have this tunnel vision, you don't see anything else until it spits you out the other side. And a lot of colleges, they don't do a very good job of preparing athletes for life after football.
Yeah.
And so for me, I feel like, because of my maturity, my mission, all of the other things, my family, all of the other things that I had in my life, I was able to come out the other side, and do something. Granted, not yet what I am completely wanting to do yet,
Right.
but there's a lot of guys who come out of high school, go to college, spend 4 years there, get a degree, play football, and then go right back to where they were 4 years ago. Now that I've kind of had a year and a half or 2 years to step away from football, um, I'm ready to kind of cut my teeth in some better things, and get going and get started, because I think I've been floating a little bit for about a year.
Yeah.
Um, but actually, what you're doing is something I thought about with coding,
Hmm.
but I don't know if I have the attention span to sit and to knock things out like I'm sure it takes. Maybe you could speak to that, because I don't.
Well,
Is that
I
tough for
would
you, or is
say
that
I would say
more for your personality?
well, personality wise, I don't think I have a great attention span. I was just going through all the things that I've done, and I have like no attention. I'm constantly kind of changing and evolving how I want to approach my life and everything like that. But part of the reason why I feel like I can have the attention is I have this little breather moment in my life where I'm not worried about money. I'm not worried about debt. I'm not worried about pressures of work and business. And I think that's part of why I can devote that kind of attention to it. And so, I mean, I don't blame people, man. Like when you working all day and then you got to come home and you want to spend time with your family and then you got to think about, oh, can I code? It does seem like that would be a difficult thing to do. However, it's just like anything else, man. The kind of concentration you put on the football field is pretty much the same you'd have to put in here. It's just super boring at first, but I have a vision for what I want to build, and so that's what motivates me. I would never learn coding for the hell of it. Like this is why I never pursued computer science degrees. I was not
Hmm.
interested in theory. I was not interested in learning the inner workings of a computer. I literally just have applications I want to build, and that's the only thing that's driving me 100% towards this. And the truth is, I'm not even trying to get to the point where I'm the best coder in the world. I only want to get to the point where I can build what I want out in a prototype version in like a couple of weeks and then test it from there and then bring on the right people if it looks like it's going to be a promising idea. So don't think for a second I'm like trying to be friggin' Steve Wozniak or whoever that guy in Apple that partnered with Steve Jobs. I'm not thinking about this from purely being the best coder. I'm thinking about it from the freedom to build out my ideas without having
From
to
an
drop tens
entrepreneurial
of
standpoint,
yeah,
yeah.
not dropping tens of thousands of dollars to prototype any little idea I have, which is what I've done. And that
Yeah.
gets very expensive. You know what I mean? When you start adding up
Yeah.
trying to do things. And for me, the small investment that it costs for me to learn how to do it on my own, I mean, it makes total economic sense for me to learn how to prototype, become a full stack
Absolutely.
developer, and then I can just do that. And so, I mean, on that though, let's talk about tech and businesses and stuff like that because it sounds like obviously that's an interest of yours. And this is part of why I'm doing this is because I want to show people that just because you feel like you were trained in this one thing, like dentistry has nothing to do with coding, like zero.
Yeah.
There's very little translatable skills other than we sit all day and we focus on one thing. That's about it. Like I don't know any. I have no natural
Well,
advantages.
that's an underestimated skill, to sit and do one thing, because that's tough for a lot of people, myself included. But with what you're talking about, that's actually what interested me initially in coding, because I wanted to own my own ideas.
That's right.
Like when I had something, because I mean, I've talked to a lot of people. I have a couple friends that are software programmers, and I don't necessarily envy what they do, but I envy their ability to do it, because if they had an idea, which they don't, they
Yeah.
could put it into action. And so even for me, like I'm just a naturally curious person,
Yeah.
and so like I kind of equate it to mechanics, that I know very basic mechanics, so when I go to the shop, I don't get ripped off.
That's right.
And that's exactly what I was looking for with coding. I mean, like I said, like I work from home, so I've had a lot of free time. So I started just looking online for different courses, and like MIT, they have their entire courseware online.
Yeah.
So I went on there. I went on to one of them. Actually, I've been on several try to learn coding and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I was doing one of them on. I was doing it on my company computer actually, and so I get this message coming over, and then like my screen goes white over the speakers. It's like blaring a siren, and it's like, we have all of your Facebook and banking passwords. Call this number or we will lock you out of the system. So I call our IT guy. I was like, hey man, can you log into my computer and fix this? He's like, what's going on? And I told him, he's like, oh, I gotta send you a new computer. So I have not done that anymore, thankfully, but it's kind of scared me away. But
No, I wouldn't get.
yeah, I'm
I get it, man. Like it seems daunting because there's so many languages, and quite frankly, if I didn't know exactly what I wanted to build, I would be lost too. I would be like, what am I learning this for? Because anything can be done in most languages. It's just a matter of putting it together and finding the most relevant language. It's certainly a field where you have to keep up with it, right? Because whatever's
right.
relevant now might not be relevant in 2 years. So I'm well aware of that. But my hope is that by the time these companies are built and I have a team around me, that they'll kind of help keep, things updated and keep the company current in terms of what languages and the kind of
Uh-huh.
people that were with the right skills, right? So I've always looked at this from a purely like business point of view, and it's funny that you mentioned they have the skill but they don't have the ideas.
Yeah.
And it sucks when you got the ideas but you don't have the skill.
Yeah.
Because just in my own experience, I feel like coders hide from people. You know what I'm saying? Like they
Yeah.
know everybody's got a freaking idea. And so they hide because I don't know, it's like a hot girl, right? Like they know they're good looking, they know that they're pretty, so they know guys want to get with them, and so they just sort of play, hard to get. And it was
Hmm.
frustrating because, even when you pay them, I still felt like there was a level of communication I could never reach with them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted to fill that gap, and that's what I'm doing, man. Because I got the ideas. I want the skill to communicate it properly. I don't want to get
Yeah.
scammed. I mean, I don't think I was scammed. I think poor communication is expensive, and
Yeah.
that's I think what's happening. So as I kind of go through this journey, literally, I think it'll be October where I'll be a little more comfortable just jumping on my own thing and getting it done. But
Hmm.
I want to document this next 3 months, 3.5 months, I guess, so that people that I know can know exactly what I went through, and they don't have to wonder, is this too much for me? It's not. I think so far it's super boring. It's like really repetitive. It's confusing as hell. It's like learning Chinese, literally. But hey, man, someone's got to do it. If you want that control, I think you have to be willing to sacrifice something. And this
Yeah.
is my window to sacrifice that. Like right now, I could be making money as a dentist, but I just choose not to because to me, 20, 30, 40 years from now, I think this is going to play out and it'll be good.
So is that something that you anticipate going back to, or this is just you've changed the direction of the ship at this point
Well, I've certainly gone off
with
course.
dentistry? I mean,
I'll say that.
yeah.
I've definitely gone off course, and I see a little oasis in the distance, but I'm not so far off course that I can't pivot back. If I really wanted to. In fact, I've had ideas of like starting my dental practice and then starting the three startups in the back room, so that the dentistry will pay for the rent, and then we can just work in the back. And because in the beginning, it's going to be a startup
Hmm.
dental practice too, I'll have the time, to get in the back and get to work. And so to
Hmm.
me, it's a tool. It's a way to get to where I want to go. I've had to fight off a lot of the negative thoughts even I've had, but I definitely know other people are kind of be like, why would you give up a job where you get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this? And I'm just like, I don't, it's hard to answer that question because it's really dictated by money. And my main reason for doing this is it's dictated by freedom. Like I just don't feel free to be flexible and creative enough to do what I want to do. And I'll go through whatever it takes, man, to feel that kind of freedom. Because I think it'll be worth it, man. I don't know. It's weird because you just don't hear about that all the time, but I think that's the point. like I think I got to do it.
That's cool. Yeah, mad respect for that.
I had a question. You were talking about the maturity factor. What changed when your daughter was born? So, what's your daughter's name again?
Citella.
Sorry,
Citella?
Itela.
Stella?
Stella.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I was going through dental school, as soon as I had my son, dude, everything changed, man. I actually think I wouldn't have got through dental school if I didn't have a kid, because I got more serious about everything. You know what I mean? Like I got more
Hmm.
serious about my time, got more serious about studying. I felt like I learned faster because I had to, because I wasn't about to go home and then ignore everybody. Tell me about your whole situation with your family. Like, how did that change you in the time when it happened, and even right now? Like, what are your thoughts on all that?
It definitely changed. It's just definitely a different gravity that you feel. I'm sure everybody feels that when they become a parent. For me, I don't necessarily know how well, professionally for
Yeah.
me, I don't know that it affected me quite the same because I didn't have a direction. I didn't. I mean, I was kind of floating at the time, like I said, and so it was nice to kind of get out into the real world. But like even today, right now, I'm less than 2 years into the workforce. Like I'm very very early in my career,
Yeah.
but I'm almost 10 years older than most of the people that have started. And so for me, when she was born, I don't necessarily know that I had quite the same types of thoughts I'm sure that you had, because how old were you when you had your first
Oh,
kid?
I was like 24, 25.
You were in dental school?
Yeah, like I was in my second
Yeah.
year, right in the middle of it. But yeah, you make a good point. Like I already knew where my ship was headed, so it kind of just
Yeah. So like
solidified that.
for me, I it was still kind of in the middle of like, okay, let's take this guy away from football. What are we gonna do? Oh, here's a baby. And it was the best thing that's ever happened to us. But it was tough, and we are kind of floating, still trying to see, what it is we want to do, what we're supposed to do. Because really, we felt great. We felt great about the NFL stuff. I had a lot of good information. I had a lot of good prospects, things like that. But it wasn't meant to be. I mean, it just wasn't for us, and so that just kind of made me have to reset. And so when you threw my daughter into the mix, it wasn't like, okay, now I gotta grind in the job that I am now.
Right.
I was still kind of in the midst of taking a breather from everything, and so now that we've been a little more bit more established, and but, I mean, while I was working from home, I got to spend all the time that I wanted to with her, and my job was not very demanding, and so I just hung out with her all the time. And now I am getting to the point that I'm like, this is not what I don't want to just hang out all the time. I need professional fulfillment. I
Yeah.
need things. I have the capability to go and get them. And that's part of what made me think about, going to code, and like we talked about, just owning my own ideas, having that entrepreneurial spirit. It's in me, but I honestly I don't really know how to enact all of those things. And so that's kind of the journey that I'm on now. Whether it's to go and get my MBA,
Yeah.
whether it's to go to networking events and meet people, and then learn all the MBA stuff on the side.
Yeah.
All of those things are kind of what I'm facing now. But when she was born, um, it was more of a capstone for us in a certain part of our lives, because we weren't sure that we would have kids.
Yeah.
Had I been in an NFL camp during that time, we probably wouldn't have her. And so those are one of the things that I
Wow.
look at and think this was a blessing for me,
Yeah.
to have to be away from football, because it's something I wanted. I wanted really bad, and I worked as hard as I possibly could. And so feeling like that, I feel like that's one of the reasons I was able to walk away from it easily, because I knew, like, I did everything I could. If God wanted this to happen, like this would have happened, because I didn't leave any stone unturned. And again, like, you look back on things, and there's tons of stuff I could have done better, stuff I should have changed, but I could not have seen it at the time.
Yeah.
And so with her, now it's just kind of focusing on, okay, how do I put my family in the best position without compromising their position, because there's things I know how to do and things I can do that can go and make money at a certain point in time. But like for example, coaching, that's one of the things I've always been interested in, but it's tough. It's tough on families. Um, and I've talked to every coach that I know, and they are all. I mean, it's a mixed bag. It's not a profession. Everybody's like, "Oh, come on down, you're gonna love it." Everybody's like, "Well, sit down. Let me tell you what this is actually about." Like, because on the field, like you see on the field, like that's the best part of your entire year is 12 games, but you don't see that I was gone for 6 weeks in the summer. I didn't see my family, like things like that. That I've kind of had to take a look at professionally. But I mean, having a family is a blessing for anybody, but I don't know that I necessarily have changed a whole lot up until now.
Yeah.
To kind of gear up for stuff.
Who are you following right now as far as inspiring you to get to that next level?
Well, one of the things that I've tried to do is not necessarily, I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing, but I try not to emulate just one person. Because what works for them is likely not going to work for me. I've looked into a lot. I've done a lot of reading over the course of the last year and a half. I've listened to tons of audiobooks because I've just found that works better for me. Like Tony Robbins, I've listened to a lot of his stuff, but even that, like Tony Robbins, wildly successful, like very powerful speaker and things like that. He's also been divorced, I think, multiple times. And from what I see, people that are the most successful in one area are often wildly unsuccessful in another area, because in order to swing the pendulum all the way that way, you have to swing it away from something else. And so I don't know that there's necessarily one person that I've tried to emulate, but I think one of the specific gifts that I have that are unique is the ability to learn from other people's mistakes. Like if there's somebody that goes up and tries the door, I'm not necessarily one of the people that needs to go up and like, hey, well, let me see if I can do it better. I mean, and then there are, and maybe my wife would disagree because I'm sure she feels like, like I'm a doofus sometimes. But
That's so funny. She's in the neighborhood and all of a sudden the tone changes. I love it. Same thing would happen if my wife walks through the door. I'll be like, okay, Westlee, what were we talking about again? Let's.
But yeah, as far as emulation, there's a couple people like I said, Jimmy Rex was a guy that I reached out to while I was in Utah. He has a lot of habits, and really of the guys that I've met personally, especially, you kind of see with the most successful people, at least in my experience, that there's no magic formula. Like everybody that I know that has gotten to the places that I wanted to go has gotten there through grit and through hard work.
Yeah.
Like there's no magic to the system. Like put it in, take it out. Put it in, take it. Like that's just kind of how it works from what I've seen. And there's skills that will make things easier, that will grease the wheels, but it will never take away the need you have to work hard.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome perspective, man, because we live in a world where you can actually see what everyone's up to. You can hear all of their philosophies and their ideas and their advice. And it can be so dangerous to actually get caught up in that because, like you said, I mean, it's so easy to give advice once you got through your thing. And then tell people, oh, I did this. But your journey is just going to be different than everyone else's. So let's stick on that for a minute.
And I don't think I haven't realized my potential there.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to that. And I feel like for the most part, I feel like, I'm typically underestimated. Like, I don't know why, but in school, I don't know if you had the same thing in Canada, but like in high school, in college, they see a 6'4", 250 pound Polynesian dude and like, oh, I'm going to have to give this guy a C to get him out of my face. He's not going to do anything. He's just going to be some chump. Like,
Yep.
I've had professors be like at the end, be like, you're surprisingly articulate. Like, what the hell does that mean? Like,
no, I totally know where you're coming from,
is
man.
that
Visually, they certainly don't look at me and assume all of the things I wish they would have assumed about me. Going through my courses and everything like that. And on the flip side, there is a part of me that feels like maybe I might have used that as an excuse early on to not expect as much from myself. And that I think was where the danger was, and it slowed me down. But once I kind of just grappled with that and figured out, if you actually want to do something, it's all on you. There's nobody and their expectations that are going to fix that. And I think that's
Yeah.
why, owning this thing, this actually helps me stay accountable too. That's part of the reason why I do it. I think a lot of people would go, why
Yeah.
are you putting yourself out there? I'm like, I don't have a coach or a network of people that are completely supportive of me doing what I'm doing. That's why I have to go elsewhere and find those people that are literally out of my immediate circle. There's no
Yeah.
other way, but the blessing of the internet is that you can, right? Like, dude, those 10
Yeah.
people, those 20 people that are supporting you, that are like, yeah, man, keep going. That actually matters to me a lot, because it's like playing a football game and there's nobody watching, no one cheering you on. That sucks, man. Like, that's not how I want to play life. And so,
Yeah. So have you dealt with many haters at this point? Because I assume you started gaining some traction with social media and everything like that. And for me, that's kind of historically has been something that I've kind of shied away from. Like, I don't like drama, and so a lot of things that I have opinions on, I'll see on Facebook and I'll type out a message and be like, "Nah, I don't care that much. I'll delete it." But
okay, so this is really important because to answer your question, no, I haven't received a lot of hate. I think the only thing that I can sense is more the sentiment that this guy shouldn't be doing this. You know what I mean? So I've sensed
yeah,
more of that than overt hate. And so what that tells me is I don't think I'm far enough along yet for it to matter enough for people to hate on it. I think there's so many things people would rather do their time, spend their time doing than actually to watch me learn to code.
yeah,
I always think of life like you said, it's unique. Your journey's going to be different, and this is just going to be part of mine. And so I'm actually anticipating the hate, but it's never bothered me before. Like, I literally it just has never concerned me, because I actually know where I'm at in life, and I'm not misrepresenting that. You know what I mean? I think that's why I'm
yeah.
okay.
Well, it's probably different for you as well, having a measure of limelight like that you grew up in. Am I
Oh
right? Like
yeah, like the
with
performing and
singing and
stuff.
all that stuff. Yeah, with recording and performing and all that stuff. And actually, honestly, I remember going to the reunion, and I've thought about that before. That when we went to Temple Square, and you guys were like, "All right, let's start singing." Bam, turned it on, started singing, and that was really impressive to me. And I've remember, no, really, because like, I think there's a tendency, especially within the Polynesian
Mm.
community, to believe that humility is self-deprecation,
Yes, yes.
and it's not. Like, you can have talents and you can showcase talents, and it means nothing to your humility.
Yeah.
That
Dude, this is big.
and
This
that's
is
been a
this is a
lesson.
big issue that you're talking about, because the guys that I follow and the girls that I follow on social media that are Polynesian, one wish I would have for them is to not feel that way. Like, I literally
Right.
see it in their posts. I feel it in the way that they talk. They don't want to actually express how they really feel. They always have to like cut themselves down, because they know in the Polynesian community,
Exactly.
someone's about to cut you
Somebody else is
down.
going to do it.
And so you
Yes,
want to beat them to the
exactly.
punch. And it just kind of sucks, because that's why I think
Crabs in the bucket.
exactly. That's why I feel like there's so few.
If you're gonna do that, the ceiling for that type of thinking is a blue collar worker, which is needed. I mean, it's a necessary
Mhm.
thing, but so many Polynesians have so many
I
talents:
know.
artistic, singing, um, organizational. Like, it's a dynamic culture that lends itself to a lot of different things, but
Actually, on
it's
that, hold
like
on a sec.
that's
Just let
a
me interject here for a second. Pause.
yeah.
So, I actually believe the Polynesian culture is one of the few cultures in the world where there isn't a lot of mainstream like negative connotations with it. So we have a huge advantage with that right out the gate. That I think that was really important to me to realize. Like, you're
Hmm.
blessed to be Polynesian, man. Polynesians are awesome.
Yeah, absolutely, and I agree. Um, it's also something that's been on my mind that in order to do anything great, you have to acquire some haters. It's just a fact. And for me, like, that's some like I was saying with comments, like, there are so many insightful Polynesian people that I know hold their tongue because while 15 people are gonna be like, yes, that's empowering. I enjoy that. There's gonna be two or three of their cousins saying, "Oh, look at this dude. He changed. He's this. He's that." And that's a stereotype that I would like to get away from. And it's hard for me because like I don't have any enemies in the world. Like, and I'd like to keep it that way, but not at the expense of having success and doing the best that I can do. Because if no one ever sees anything that I ever do, nobody's gonna have any opinion about it. Like it's almost like there's a view that apathy is a positive thing, and I'm trying to get away from that, and it's difficult because there's sometimes that I want to do something, I feel like it would be good, but I'd be like, oh, I don't want people to think I'm just attention
Yeah.
grabbing. Like
Oh.
that's not who I am.
Okay. So.
That's not who
Okay.
I
A little
am.
secret drop here. So when I was a dentist and I was working, like I'm not one of those people where I say f everybody. I don't actually believe that I don't give a f what anybody else thinks. When I was working as a dentist, I cared deeply about what people thought about me. Like if they left a bad comment on the Facebook or on like the internet, I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
oh man, I'm ruined, right? Like, and you start feeling all of these, because a lot of the time when people speak up, there's a legitimate reason, and I actually care about understanding that because for whatever reason, my self esteem is wrapped up to a certain extent in being likable. You know what I'm saying? And I've always like you, I don't have really any enemies. Like right now, it's funny to talk about this, but the last place we lived, we're having a little tiff with the landlord, and I actually feel really bad. And I'm like, man, I want to fix this because he might go online and say something bad about me, and I'm just like, this is stupid. But at the same time, the other side of me is like, but you got to get over that, man. And I really admire people who have a ton of haters and seem to just move forward with it. I'm sure it affects people because I would consider myself someone who has a decent self-esteem. Like I don't walk around depressed, like gloomy, afraid to talk to people, but I care. So I can only imagine someone who does feel self-conscious to holy cow, man, that must be tough. When you actually want people to like you, but you feel bad about yourself, you think you're ugly or you think you're not
Yeah.
successful or whatever. And so, yeah, just I think that's something that a lot of people probably aren't willing to talk about is that they actually do care about the comments. And then they just pray and hope that if they get a negative comment, that all these people will rally around and take them
Yeah.
on, take the troll on, so that you feel like, oh, I
Yeah.
got my crew again, right? So
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, man. It's actually a very powerful thing to say, to acknowledge that you don't have any enemies and you want to keep it that way. And sometimes that's a hard thing when in order to succeed, you got to get some haters, right? And I don't want
Yeah.
to provoke them. I'm just wondering at what point does it become natural that you attract them? And again, that's a whole different discussion about when that
Yeah.
happens or how that happens. But I definitely cared, man. Like I really cared of people what they thought about me when I was a dentist. And by the way, for anybody about to leave a bad comment, like I haven't worked as a dentist in 3 months, so that's impossible. I couldn't have done that. I wasn't even there. Like check the date, yo. Check the date.
That's kind of a goal of mine is to really acquire haters because I mean I don't think anybody. Maybe there's some, but if they are, they're quiet about
I
it
know.
at least.
Yeah, like that's what I want to know. Who are these people that unfollow me or don't like it when I share what I'm doing? I'm like, was there something else you wanted me to share? Like, do you want me to make
Yeah,
something up? Do you want me to not be excited? Do you want me to not film in 4K so that it's better to watch for you? Do you want me to not
yeah.
bring
It's
energy? Like I just like to know who those people are. I really want to talk with them. I want to know.
well, often I think those people are so unfulfilled. Like I'm on Twitter, right? And so I've gotten into these tiffs here and
Oh,
there with different people, and it seems like 80% of the people that I get in tiffs with on Twitter do not have their own face as their profile pic.
it's
It's
true.
like it's like a
Yeah.
helmet or something like that. Like you don't want me to see you because I'm a real person. If I see you every time, I'm gonna punch you in the face. uh,
That's so
but
funny, man.
I
Cause
even with social media, like you were talking about, like to me, social media is just like it's a wildfire that you can either try to control and harness, or it can just spread because you can show people your life, but nobody shows every aspect of their life.
right.
It's not conducive to business. It's not productive. Nobody wants to go see you getting the boring groceries. Nobody wants to see you just doing your regular work. People want to see extraordinary things or they're not going to care at
Right.
all. And so people have this perception like everything that I see on this person's social media is just how they live. And it's never the case for
Yeah.
anybody. Like I if I showed you all of the best pictures and all of the best moments of my life, you'd be like, "Man, this guy's life is freaking awesome." But I live in an apartment. Like I got neighbors downstairs that get annoyed and they complain about me, like things like that. Nobody's showing on social media, and nobody's like grabbing thousands of views when they get complained at, or then when I have to go talk to the landlord about the electricity bill. Like
Yeah, dude.
nobody cares about that
I used
stuff,
to live in an
and
apartment.
it's such a
I
dangerous
used to live in
thing.
an apartment right above one of the CFL players, and this fool used to blast and have parties from Thursday to Saturday, dude. And we just had a newborn second child. Oh man, like yeah, if we posted all that stuff, you're absolutely right. People would not. They would think we're being negative. You know what I'm saying? They would think, why are you posting negative stuff? And so it's a really weird place to be. And yet there's so much good that comes from it too, right? Like I even think this
Mm-hmm.
conversation, man, I know there's Polynesians out there that just need to hear that, man. Humble does not mean you got to put yourself down. Pull out inside jokes, read between the lines, subtleties of communication that are super funny.
Yeah, we're all like super hilarious.
Yeah, I know. And people, and the reason why I bring that up, because
If
people
people
only
only knew
knew
how funny
they
we
would try
were.
to send the Tongas and the LaFontaines on tour, but they don't. And
But they
they
don't.
don't. And it's
And that's why
weird.
we don't have no
That's
haters.
right. And so, my question for you, by the way, this has been a super cool conversation, almost to the point where if I was like a talking head on CNN, I would just call you just to see what you thought about a particular issue. And I don't usually feel that way towards people because I feel like they're just regurgitating what they heard. Because I read the headlines too, so I hear the headlines and
Yeah.
what they're answering. And I think what
Yeah.
you've brought to the table is Wesley's perspective, and I love that. I love that to pieces, man. When people actually connect with themselves, they know what they think, and they're not too quick to just run off and adopt what everyone else is thinking. That's a strong trait with you and your siblings. Why? Why do you think you guys are so like that?
Um, I think culture has a lot to do
Yeah.
with it. That there are, aspects of being Polynesian that are kind of ingrained that are strong personality traits that occur naturally by being Polynesian. Um, it's not a it's not a culture where it's cool to be lazy. It's not a culture where it's cool to at least not to actually be lazy. Like I think sometimes you have a tendency to make people think like you're not trying very hard
Oh my
sometimes, but
gosh, dude, that is. I feel like that has become one of the big challenges that I have. 'Cause, like when I do my vlogs and I got a nice camera and stuff, like you got to see this setup, man. I have all this stuff here because if I'm gonna do it, I like to try and make it look good, and it requires a lot of
yeah,
effort. And then I'll send it off to my brother, and he'll be like, "Oh, that was cool," and I'm like, "Damn it." Dude, you don't even know how hard I tried on that. Like, and I want to tell him, but I'm like, but at the same time, that's like my secret ace up the sleeve with my family is they're like, oh, Limai can do it. He can do it quick too. And they don't realize like I'm up till 2 in the morning trying to edit things right and make it look cool and put little
yeah.
animations. Like, why do you think that is? Why do you think that's a cultural thing for us?
Um, I really don't know, and I think it has to do again with being humble. That when you work, like you work when it's time to work, it's time to work. Like if you're working, you shouldn't have time to be broadcasting this, which is not necessarily the case. And along with
Yeah.
what you're with what you were talking about before, with different cultures and with Polynesians not having really any negative stereotypes or negative connotations, like from a world perspective, I don't necessarily always think that that's a good thing. Like with other cultures, like they might have quirks that make them go against the grain of the
Yeah.
culture, but there's other parts that are wildly successful. I mean, I take any culture that sticks together and their negative connotations, they they do a certain thing well and they're not afraid or ashamed of that. And I think shame is like a humongous part of Polynesian
Right.
culture. Like you got to have a healthy amount of shame to be a in the public eye. Like you better know when you're putting shame on your family, when you're putting shame on
Dude,
yourself. Like
how is
don't
it that you
don't
you
embarrass
live on the
anybody
other
else.
side of the country, south in the United States, and yet you're hitting my pain points, man. So let me tell you about this shame that I feel because in the culture, physical labor is valued up here, and using your mind is down here. When we went to Tonga and we were visiting with our grandfather, I remember distinctly my brother Alika was in medical school at the time, and everybody was joking around calling him doctor, and
Yeah.
and he was ironing his jeans, and I think it was the right thing to make fun of him for ironing his jeans. I don't know what you got to iron jeans for, but it was just overemphasized the making fun of him ironing his jeans because he was training to become a doctor. And let me tell you how this affects me now. My folks, they're having their anniversary. They're going to come visit, and I actually feel a little bit of judgment because I don't leave the house and go do manual labor or physical labor with my hands, and I'm actually trying to build something with my mind right now. And I felt that immediately after graduation. Even we cheer for everybody to get educated, and then once they are, we go, man, you think you're so smart, man, look at you acting like a doctor, and then you almost have to dumb yourself down a little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a buddy, and he's not Polynesian. He goes, dude, the fact that you are a dentist and then you quit that to go become a coder, like, how smart do you have to be to quit being a dentist? You know what I mean? And but that is something that my family would never say. They would never even consider the possibility that maybe I like using my mind and maybe there's something in there that was of greater value to people that I needed to get out. And so I
Yeah.
feel that a lot, man. I feel like people look at me and they're like, "Oh, you're a dentist, but you're a Polynesian. What? You don't go out. You don't know how to work hard because you use your mind." And I don't want to say it's working smart. It's just a different way of working.
Yeah. And I took a really good class from a lady named Anapesi Kaili at Utah. And you kind of learn that a lot of the things that I don't mesh with from with the culture with in that respect are not necessarily cultural things. They're not from the islands always. I love the Polynesian culture, but not everything is something I want to adopt. Like, being um, pretty free with the discipline, that's always been seen as acceptable within the Polynesian culture, and that's not something I want in my family. That's
Right.
not a tool I necessarily want to exercise to the extent that it was exercised, with my dad, and he stopped that. Um, and so different things like that, I think, caused me to always feel like an outlier. Like growing up in Texas, especially, like I wasn't black, I wasn't Mexican, I wasn't completely white. Where do I fit? And so sometimes I think there's a tendency to feel like I don't fit in anywhere. But for me, I felt like I fit in everywhere.
Yeah.
Like I can hang out with these people, I can hang out with
Yeah.
these people, and when they bother me, I can go hang out with these other people. So a lot of it, I don't know how much of it is innate within me, but a lot of it is just feeling like
I was raised to feel like I could do whatever I wanted, so long as I worked to go get it. And so being choosy about what I wanted within my own family, within my own culture, was acceptable to my family, and I saw that. And so I don't know if that's necessarily a standard with all Polynesian households, that they feel like this is the lane that you were born into, this is the lane that you stay in. Where, like, in talking to other Polynesians, I've always thought like your grandpa did yakte doesn't mean you have to do it. Like, just because your dad worked construction, they did that so you could go to
Mm-hmm.
school. Like, you have to build on the next generation, and it's happening. Like, the guy that I went and shadowed, he's kind of the head of one of the solar companies in
Yeah.
Utah. Polynesian dude with an MBA and a wild network and all these things. And so I think within the next
Mm-hmm.
generation, you'll see a lot more of that type of culture rise up with
Yeah.
Polynesian.
No, I think that's I agree with you completely because this next generation, I think they're gonna question when people tell them, "Oh, you it's a Tongan thing," or it's from the culture. Growing up, I was always taught with those phrases. You know, that's how we do it. And then I got to thinking, is it really? Is that really how you do it? Is that how like you do it? Right? Like, is that how you prefer? Because when you start comparing, preferences, the principles, a lot of the traditions don't make sense. A lot of the ways of thinking
Yeah,
didn't weren't compatible with what I wanted to do. And so if I kept that line
yeah.
of thinking, I don't think I would have
Compatibility.
yeah,
That's
I
a
don't think I
totally
would have
good point.
actually tried to do a lot of the things that I'm doing right now. And a lot of the success or results that have come from it have come from other people's thinking. Like, I literally had to go through books. I
Yeah,
literally had to watch YouTube videos of other people from different cultures with different beliefs. And that's what fed my spirit so that I could go out and try something else. And even though I attribute a ton of the success to where I come from, certainly it's missing some parts that I think we need to bring into it. I don't want to say it like that. It's not missing some parts. It's just there's more. We have to expand our minds beyond where we came from if we want to follow a
well,
different
I
path.
mean, yeah, and a lot of the things, like, I've felt are specific to life on the island. Like, there's a lot of different practices that work, that it's a different scenario here, and I'm all for, I wish I spoke Tongan. I wish I knew more traditions and things like that. um I have a ton of respect for it. It's my culture. It's ingrained into me. But if it doesn't fit the path that I have learned to walk for myself, I have no problem discarding.
You know what's funny
And I
about us
think
even just talking about this? I feel like this is probably where we would get the most haters right now in our life. Just
absolutely, and
talking
honestly,
about
it
it.
makes me feel
Yeah, like
uncomfortable.
just talking about
Yeah,
it, like you'll have people that speak Tongan, have lived in Tonga, like coming after you like, "Oh, you don't know. You don't know what it's like." And I'm just like, "Dude, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I don't know what it's
yeah,
like." That's
it's
I'm
totally
not
true,
trying to
and it's
put it
something
down.
that I'm trying to.
It's we're trying to
Yeah,
reconcile and bring the power of
absolutely.
it. And I actually talked about this in one of the episodes with Ali'i one time. That I'm just trying to live in a way that people would want me as part of their culture. You know what I mean? Like live my
Hmm.
life in a way that they would be proud to say, "Oh, he's part Tongan. That's cool." That's all.
Yeah,
That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to like
but
pick it
yeah, and
apart and say
even
it wasn't good enough for me or whatever. It totally is, man. If I didn't have it, it would suck. I'm just trying to express a challenge that I had, man. Like, I literally couldn't get to where I was keeping that mindset. It had to change. I had to bring new
yeah.
things in. But I
Hmm.
think we found our
And a
haters
lot
though.
of
I
that
think
is
they're
like,
gonna come. I really
yeah,
do.
and this is the feeling that I feel, like feeling uncomfortable with people disagreeing, or like feeling like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. It makes me feel uncomfortable, and that's like with what you're talking about, trying to
get comfortable feeling uncomfortable, that's where I'm at now. That's kind of one of the next steps I'm trying to take, is being comfortable enough to be like, okay, this is what I believe, and not saying but believe, but
You
I
know
mean,
what? You
like,
know what a
I
perfect
also
example
believe
of that
something
was. You know
else.
what a
You know what I mean?
perfect example of what does. In Philadelphia, that one football player is like a broadcaster now. What's his name?
Vi,
So yeah, Vai
Vice Lama.
Hema, and it was Reno actually. He was speaking Tongan on a show or something like that, and then Vi totally schooled him because his accent or the way that he spoke wasn't good enough, wasn't Tongan enough, and it's stuff like that. I kind of sit back and I go, good for you. You have like the legitimate Tongan accent. You know the language better, but I'm not so sure if that's a good thing to do. To take your higher level of authenticity and then make someone who, in your opinion, is less authentically that, and then drag them down. When someone's legitimately like talking about their culture, to say you're not enough of that, it's like, what's enough? Like, seriously, how arbitrary is that word enough? 50%, 25, 10? Like, I did a DNA test and apparently I'm 20% British and 10% Native American. I should have better manners, right? but but the math, like, it just doesn't add up that way. Like, you can't, I don't know. But at the same time, I abuse it too, right? Because I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm Polynesian. It's like, if I had to break everything down into percentages and be that specific, I might feel like I own it less. It's like owning 20% of a
Yeah.
business. Like, you don't own the whole thing, but you own 20% of it. Like, how do you feel about situations like that?
When people question your
Yeah,
authenticity.
when people come down on you like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about because you never been there, you don't speak tongue, you don't know the culture, you never lived the culture. Are we just never supposed to bring it up? Is that the right? Or
I
should we just talk to each other and just stick
A
with the
lot of
half
those
Kasi
things
people?
is yeah, serious. But a lot of it is just being comfortable in your own skin, because at a certain point, with what you're talking about, people wanting to adopt you into their culture. Take The Rock,
Yeah.
for example. If The Rock was doing the same thing and making no money and had no followers, he would be clowned. If he was making workout videos and grunting and stuff like that, people like, "Oh, look at this dude. He's trying to show out. Like, what a
Yeah.
goofball." And he would be clowned. But the fact that he is successful, he is driven, and he has adopted everything that he wanted to adopt and become his own person, and then raised the bar and become a symbol. Now everybody's like, oh, yeah, that's my cousin, that's my uncle. Like,
Yeah.
I met him one time. Like, he knew my cousin. He's related this way. All of these
Yeah.
different things. So I think being comfortable in your own skin enough to kind of transcend cultural ties and
That's a good
become
word,
the
man.
best
That's a good
you.
word, man.
That's a huge thing, because as soon as you can rise above the fray and the crowd, you can be a beacon to others who are able to. Because if you stay the exact same way as the rest of the crowd, you will never get any further than the crowd. Like, that is your
Yeah.
destiny. You have to be a little bit different. You have to acquire some haters, I think, in order to do that,
And just
in
for
order to
anybody
have
watching, just so
a
you know,
measure of
like,
success.
we don't have an identity crisis. This isn't, like, I've never felt for a moment that, we don't feel comfortable in our own skin. I just think it's a legitimate thing that pops up in my life, over and over again. It's a reoccurring
Yeah.
theme that I got to deal with, that I think other people who would
Well,
be 100% of this or more legit or authentic or whatever probably wouldn't have to deal with. But you know what? I'm sure there's things they deal with that I don't deal with either. So it all kind of balances out.
yeah,
But I
but
love what
just
you said, man. Transcend the people, like, transcend what the crowd is doing. And I feel like in a lot of ways that's
yeah.
that's what these things feel to me. Like, I'm looking beyond my insecurity. I'm looking beyond what's expected of me. Like I feel like I did the dentist thing so I could check it off so people wouldn't be like, "Oh, but you never did what I asked you to do." You know what I mean? Like I'm obedient like that. When my mom says, "Do this," I'll do it. But now that I've done it, I feel like I have this freedom now to move and transcend the expectations
Yeah.
of other people, which probably is a weakness of mine. You know, I do genuinely care. I want to live up to people's expectations of me, not in the sense of I want to do everything that everyone else expects me to, but I want to be a good guy. Like there's just certain things about me that I want to make sure I live up to. Like I want to be good to
Yeah.
you. I want to be honest with you. Like, dude, all my business dealings, I'm trying to be straight up legit with everybody because the last thing I want is something coming back to me saying he didn't fulfill his end of the bargain. And I know there's people I work with that don't feel like that. And that bothers me a lot, right? And so that's what I mean by people expect me to be the open, honest, kind, generous, whatever. I want to live up to that. I really do because I think that's a good thing to live up to. How do you, though, deal with the expectations from your family, from your culture, or the people around you? Do you deal with stuff like that, or
Well, I was going to speak to that before with, I mean, for you and I don't feel like we've had necessarily the identity crisis, but that does occur. Like that's a common ailment, especially within the culture, because you have so many like Afakasis
yeah,
now and people that don't know where they fit into the culture. For I mean, a guy that goes and serves there now, he speaks the language, but he doesn't look the part. Like, is he fit in the culture? Does he not fit in
yeah,
the culture? All of those different things kind of factor in, and it's a problem for some people, but the people that have the most success, I feel like, even within the culture, are people that don't give a
yeah,
rat's. Like, I'll be who I am, and then you have to fulfill both that part and being
yeah,
genuine with what you're talking about. Like, if you are a genuine person and you are honest in your dealings with everybody else, like you were saying, I think everything just kind of comes full circle for you, and it works out because no matter what profession you're in, um, at a certain point, if you're not doing things right, you are paying for a quality of life. Like, if you are trying to earn money and not enjoying it, you are essentially earning that money to pay for a poorer quality of
it's
life that
true.
you have. Whereas if you earned less money, had more free time to do the things that you want, you would essentially have a break even at that point. But to go back to what you said, how do I deal with expectations? I didn't have a ton. Like I didn't have many stretches. Like I never really had to worry about a point like, are my parents gonna have to pay for college for me? Like, because I was offered a scholarship pretty early. I went to school into football. Um, as far as a mission, nobody told me to
Yeah,
go. Like I wasn't forced to go. I think that was big for me. My sister Sunny was really Sunny and Gina really the only ones that even talked to me much about it. Like Sunny always expected me to go. Sunny and
yeah,
Junior always did, and I spent summers with them. Um, and up until I was like 16, I didn't even want to go. Um, some things happened, and I ended up feeling like this is what I need to do. I went with football. I mean, that was just an expectation that I mean, you play football, there are plenty of expectations, but they weren't like difficult for me to live
right.
up to. Like having character, that's something that a lot of other guys had to struggle with, but I had came from good stock. Like that wasn't necessarily something for me. Now I think is when the real not a crisis, but the real test will be for me is seeing what I'm going to do next, because I feel like I don't know if it's necessarily something everybody thinks or just like me and my own brain. Like I feel like I can do these great things. I have these great ideas, and now I have no idea how to put it into action, and that's what I have to go seek out and
Yeah,
find now. So of the expectations that were placed on me, I don't know that there were a ton. I feel very blessed with the family that I have that didn't put a ton of pressure on me. It was the perfect family for me. I feel like I thrived in that family. Um, but going forward, I think now is my real test is to see where are you going to go from here, because it was pretty smooth sailing up to this
right.
point. Like it was a pretty easy path. The path of least resistance was football for me, just because of everything that
Yeah.
fell into place.
Dude,
So
man, this has been like a super insightful, enlightening talk. I mean, dude, I feel like I'm just talking with one of my brothers and we're just rattling off whatever and keeping it moving. Um, I'd like to continue this. Not to put you on the spot or anything, like as far as like you have to update, about what you're doing every minute of the day. But there's genuinely conversations that I think I can only have with a few people, and it'll lead to something, right? Like there'll be some insight, there'll
yeah,
be some honest conversation about it, there'll be some humor. You're actually one of those people that I think does that well. Um, I knew this a long time ago when we used to visit with you guys. Stowe is good to chat, man. And I think more than
yeah,
anything, I
you
just
too,
really
man.
need that in my life right now because I like to explore these things. It's like letting off steam, It's like, kind of putting these things out of my mind, getting it out so that I can focus on what I'm really trying to do. And I just really appreciate your time, man. I didn't know what this conversation would bring, but it sounds like you're right at that point. Yeah, like I actually feel like we're in the same kind of mindset right now. Like we got to do our thing, we got to figure that out. And whatever yours looks like or mine looks like, it's the same. We're in the same kind of mindset, and I'd like to hold on to that as long as possible because once you get super successful, dude, I know you're gonna forget about me. I know you're gonna start acting like somebody different, and that's cool. But that's I just want to hold on to that as long as possible. So
Well, I guess you can have me for as long as I will let you.
no homo. So
Oh.
So I can edit this however I want to make you look any way that I want, and I hope you don't mind what I'm about to do. No, I'll keep it classy, man. I'll keep it classy.
Oh,
I respect you and your family, man. I want to, you guys are so cool. And yeah, any last words, man? Anything that's just been on your mind, or anything I could do to help you, or anything like that? Just spit it out.
no, I feel the same way with you. I really appreciate it. I feel like there's a, well, like you said, there's a finite number of people that you can deal with in a way that will lift you in the way that you need to at
Yep.
certain times. And I feel like you're one of those types of people, and one of those people for me that there was one thing that I learned when I went to an All-Star game, the
Yeah.
NFLPA game is within they were talking specifically like especially with like financial stuff when you get a bunch of money in the NFL, but they're saying you need people that stay in their lanes. Like you don't need your mom giving you financial advice, you don't need your pastor,
Yeah.
you don't need your pastor telling you what car to drive. Like people need to stay in their lanes. When people get crossed over, that's when your life gets all
Yeah.
mixed up. And so that's with you. I think that's absolutely an awesome thing for you and for I hope for both of us mutually that I always need more people to stay in
Yeah.
this lane that I'm talking about. People that I can connect with on this level because people that I talk to in business, they don't like the most people that I talk to in business, they don't understand the Polynesian culture. The people that I talk to widely in Polynesian culture, they don't understand really where I'm at, like educationally, or when I talk to football players, they don't understand like
Yeah.
different things. Um, and maybe that's just me and the choice that I've had in my friends, but with you, like being such an insightful person and driven with all of the social media stuff, like that's I really have looked up a lot to that because that's awesome. That's something I kind of want to start branching into. I went and met with that social media guy, and he had actually a ton of stuff. I think it would be helpful that I'll hit you up
Hey man, hit me up
offline
off
about
online with
because
that stuff. Like I love anything that can improve. It's tough on social media because like it's like everyone's screaming all at the same time. That's literally what it is. And so what I
yeah,
try to do is I think if I just stay in my lane, like you said, and not break character and try to be something that I'm not, I think down the road, I think people would just appreciate that it wasn't some big fraud that he was trying to be a coder just for the look of it, right? Or that he was
yeah,
pretending he was a dentist or whatever, any number of things people can conjure up, with their imagination. I think it is a challenge, to break through. And I'm not necessarily trying to break through because I know my situation and we're fine. However, I do know that greater opportunity requires that you connect with more people, and that I do need to do. I need to do a better job at that. I need to reach out to more people. I need to have more conversations like this, and I need to share these conversations so that people can know the real intent behind this. Because otherwise they won't know, right? They have nothing left to assume but all those great pictures that I'm about to take. That's the only thing they can judge me
Yeah.
on, right? All my beauty pictures with my shirt off. So that's not what I want to happen. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
true. Got to get the
Hey, man.
barbells. Got to get the
So,
barbells
oh,
translated.
speaking of that, Lee's been slacking, man. I really need to, you know, what can I do to motivate my brother, man? He just don't want to like make the content. Like he has the password to the IG. He could do stuff. He just doesn't. What should I do, man? I don't want to push him. It's just
You can lead a
he's
horse
probably
to
got things
water.
to do, man. I don't know. But I appreciate your time, Wesley. Man, I love you guys. Love you and your family. And let's just keep connected, man. Online, offline. Tell me what's going on with your friend and his social media stuff and what I could do better. I'll do it. I'll do anything to improve. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it was so crazy. Just
Yeah, yeah,
just with
no,
the,
no, like we don't gotta end. It's not like I have a
with
meeting
the
or
stuff
something.
that
It's
he
just
was with the stuff that he was with the stuff that he was talking about. Like it really is just a tool. Like you can hack it. Like with the algorithm and
yeah,
all that stuff. Like there's ways to push it up. There's ways to push down. Like
bro, teach me about this
all
algorithm, bro.
everything is
Okay,
so
how about
weird.
this?
Like everything
Like
matters.
maybe just 2 3 minutes of your time offline. Um, Westlee Tonga, Brothers Business and Barbells. I think this is episode 13, and we're gonna go offline real quick. He's gonna teach me something I don't know. All right, peace.